Welcome to Taxes and Treats, where I'll be digging into current tax topics and also tossing in some fun treats along the way. This is the first recording of this vlog. I do a daily tarot card reading, and it was telling me to start a new venture. So here we are, starting a new project. 10 days before the filing deadline. Well, 12 days before the filing deadline. So for those of you who don't know me on social media, aren't like a friend of mine, you've just kind of stumbled upon this. My name is Amber. I'm a CPA. I'm a tax firm owner. I run my own business, so I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a first-year law student, so I'll probably talk about some interesting tax cases that I learned about during law school. And I am also a dog mom, so I'll probably talk about my dogs more than most tax vlog people do. And then I'm a yoga enthusiast, so very big on self-care and taking care of yourself, because whenever you're self-employed, I mean, you are your business, and the health of your business depends on how well you take care of yourself. So like I said, I wanted to start this podcast to talk about tax issues, provide business advice. I've been running my own business for 5 years now, so I've learned a lot. So if you're a new business owner, I'll, hopefully provide a little bit of insight on things to watch out for and stuff you need to consider. And just talk about some of my personal experiences. I recently moved all the way from Kentucky to California. I lived in Kentucky from the age of 5 to 37, so 30 years I lived in Kentucky, and I just picked up everything and moved out here. Love it out here so far. The weather, I mean, you can't beat it. It's 70 degrees like all the time. So I'd very rarely turn on the AC or the heat. And I can see the ocean from my apartment complex. I can drive 10 minutes and be on a beach. And it's just, there's lots of hiking trails. People love their dogs out here. And there is this sense of, there's this like community of collaboration out here that I have never experienced before. I don't know if I just didn't look in the right places when I was back in Kentucky, but out here it is really wild how supportive everyone is of each other, and how people just kind of want you to shine and grow. That's been my experience so far. Without trying, I have already built quite a bit of a support system out here that I just didn't really feel like I had back in Kentucky. So that's been great. Obviously things are more expensive. I feel like it's worth it. My rent is more expensive, but I really don't feel like anything else is that much more pricey. My insurance is about the same. Food costs about the same. Whenever I go out, it's comparable to what I was paying back in Louisville. So it really hasn't been the sticker shock I expected. I think the more shocking thing was just like how freaking friendly everyone is, and how much everybody's just like, what do you need to make your business better? It's just, I've joined so many amazing groups out here. Gals That Brunch, I highly recommend it. It's an international organization. So if you have one in your area, definitely look into it, because I've met a lot of amazing people that way. And I've just had the opportunity to join a lot of really great groups and made some fantastic people. So the only complaint I really have is that every time it rains out here, people just like lose their freaking minds. And I'm from Kentucky, like it rains all the time. It rains for like 3 straight months during the spring. It rains like every day. And so, and whenever it rains in Kentucky, it like rains, like sheets of rain come falling down, everything floods. Here, it'll just be like sprinkling or misting, and people are like, oh, I gotta drive like 5 miles an hour on the west, like the rest of the way. Like, in that I'm like, okay, come on. So I've kind of figured out like don't leave your house whenever it's raining, but even like grocery shopping, if you know that it's going to rain, you need to do your grocery shopping a little bit more in advance, because if people think it's going to rain out here, they go stock up on groceries like it's like they're getting ready for like snow back in Kentucky. Like I ordered groceries the other night and it was raining, so I was like, I don't want to go to the grocery store, so I'll just have like DoorDash do my groceries. I think I did Instacart. And like the shopper couldn't get half my items, and when she got here she was like, yeah, I think, everybody just stocked up on groceries because it was supposed to rain. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I couldn't have Oreos because it was supposed to rain. Like who is stocking up on Oreos because it's supposed to rain for 2 days? So if you guys could just calm down about the rain just like a little bit, that would be great. So, but yeah, this week I officially became a San Diego dog mom, because everybody out here cooks for their dogs. It was kind of like my dirty little secret that I was still using. I was still feeding my dog store-bought Purina. And I guess I have a Great Pyrenees and a Boxer mix, and I guess my Great Pyrenees, Sidoni, like, wised up and realized, oh, everybody else out here cooks for their dogs and mom's not doing it, so she just stopped eating. And Pyrenees are, like, notoriously picky eaters, and it's not the first time she's done that, where she, like, kind of bullies me into giving her better food. And so she'll just, like, not eat because she knows that I can't see her not eat, and so I'll like I'll just add stuff to her food to get her to eat. Like sometimes I put like scrambled eggs in her food or like wet food or something like that. So finally got frustrated and I was like, I'm just gonna like look up a dog food recipe and buy the ingredients and make food for her, and it's been going great so far. For those of you who are super curious about the recipe, I posted like a little, I think it was like a 45-minute or a 45-second little video of how I make the food, but it's just 2 shredded carrots, a shredded zucchini, doesn't have to be shredded, I think that's the last time I just chopped their food, half a cup of peas, a cup of rice, 3 pounds of meat, and 2 massive handfuls of spinach. I did not know this about dogs, but they love spinach, or at least mine do. So that's the recipe. I have to switch up the meat to keep Sidoni interested, because I've learned that variety is what keeps her interested in her food. So I've just been kind of like, 1 week I do beef, 1 week I do lamb. This past week I did lamb, and now I'm nervous that she's not going to want to eat anything else, and that will suck because lamb is like $12 a pound. So but I usually can get away with doing like half turkey and then half whatever other meat she'll be interested in. So but yeah, that's the recipe. So I have become that dog mom, which is how everyone is out here. So I guess I don't have to keep my dry dog food feeding ways a secret anymore, because I stopped feeding them dry food. I still do half dry food and then the homemade dog food, which is what most people out here do. They kind of mix it together because there's some nutrients in the dry food that they won't get if you just feed them the homemade food. But if you have any recommendations of stuff that I should add, let me know. I've had a couple people already throw out there that I should add sweet potato, which I'm definitely going to do, because Sidoni loves sweet potatoes. Like, if I make sweet potato french fries, she's just staring at me, just 2 long streams of drool coming out of her mouth. So definitely adding sweet potato. Somebody recommended salmon, and I think I want to just look into it a little bit more, because I know I don't think people are supposed to eat a whole lot of salmon because it's kind of fatty. So I just want to make sure I don't give her something that's going to put her at risk for any kind of like heart disease or anything like that. But if you have any recommendations of stuff to add, I would love to hear them, because I'm just starting this journey, and I'm sure I'm going to find some hiccups along the way. This is the first time Rose is my Boxer mix, and she has a very sensitive stomach, and this is the first time that I've switched her food that she didn't have any kind of gastric upset. So that was kind of wild. I mean, like, if anything, I've noticed she's, I mean, not to be indelicate, but she's been a lot less gassy, which has been great. So, yeah, so far it's been good. But I would love to hear anybody else's stories about what they feed their dogs or what's worked for them, especially since I'm sure at some point Sidonie's going to decide, like, well, this isn't good enough for me anymore, and then I'll have to figure something else out. So a lot of people have asked me this question, why law school? I already have my CPA license. Why are you now committing to this thing that takes a lot of time and energy and all that stuff? And really a lot of reasons. I mean, I initially, whenever I went to college, I had wanted to be a lawyer. I had studied political science, and then I changed my major and kind of bounced around a little bit. But a lot of people I don't think a lot of people realize that a CPA's job and a lawyer's job, it's very much overlap, especially whenever you're working with small business owners. There's certain things that a lawyer just doesn't know how to do, and there's certain things that a CPA, we might know how to do, but we're not allowed to do it because we're not allowed to practice law. So a prime example is if somebody comes to me and they want to set up a partnership, I have to refer them out to a lawyer to at least do the operating agreement, because I'm not allowed to do that part. And I 100% recommend that if you are in a partnership with anyone, I don't care if it's your best friend, your brother, your spouse, you definitely want to have an operating agreement in place. I have seen a lot of really ugly divorces over just the business, who gets what part of the business after things are done. So definitely recommend that. And then just like a big issue I was running into back in Kentucky is there is currently a grant where if you film a movie, I know it's if you film a movie, and then I think it's also if you produce an album and maybe even write a book, the state reimburses you for those expenses. It's kind of, Andy Beshear is trying to like encourage more arts in Kentucky. I think he's kind of trying to, because Atlanta has kind of become the new Hollywood as far as like movie studios, and Nashville is definitely like the hot spot for music. So I think Andy's trying to get some more revenue in the state by encouraging artists to move there. So I had done a little bit of production accounting for a large nonprofit that did a lot of like film production, and so they were recommending people to me for production accounting, but then they were coming to me wanting to like have me review contracts and things of that nature, and I was like, well, I can't review a contract because it's considered practicing law and I'm not allowed to do that. But then of course it's like, who do I recommend them to? Because there's definitely not any entertainment lawyers in Kentucky, and there's very few business attorneys. So it was something I had been kind of thinking about in the back of my mind for a little while, and then I was just telling somebody this story, and she was just dying laughing, because the way that I take tests is I like to take them just blind without studying, and then kind of gauge how much I need to study on top of that, because I didn't really study that much until I sat for the CPA exam. Like all through high school and my undergrad, I just kind of always was able to understand things enough to where once I got to the exam I could just pass without really studying. I think really the only exception was like my like Russian language courses. I had to study the words and stuff, but other than that it was always just something that kind of clicked for me. So in my mind I was like, I'll go sit for the LSAT, and if it's too hard then I probably won't worry about it. And I went in without studying and passed it the first time. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to law school. We'll just see what happens. And I had a lot of really great offers from different programs, but of course, the one that was most appealing to me was the one here in California. Um, and that's kind of part of what prompted the move out here. Also, just wanted to change, wanted nicer weather, weather that was a little bit more, it was a little bit better on my body. I'm asthmatic, and like Kentucky is like the worst place for you to live if you're asthmatic. And I know I had come out here for like a tax training and noticed like a significant difference in my breathing. So it was kind of a chicken and the egg situation. It was like I came out here and was like, well, it is really nice out in California, and I applied for a couple of programs out here, and whenever I got accepted into one, then I was like, okay, I'll move. So it was, you know, about 50-50 law school and just wanting to live a place where I can actually breathe on a regular basis without having to use my inhaler. So but yeah, it's law school is not for the faint of heart. I'm doing it part-time, and I'm very, very grateful that I have my own business, because I can kind of adjust how much I need to work based on my study schedule. I mean, obviously this time of year I am working a lot and studying a lot, so it's been pretty brutal the last couple months, but I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Tax season's almost over, and then the semester will be over, and I'll be in my second year of law school. So, but yeah, my advice, if you are thinking about going into law school, is definitely get some real world experience. And this is honestly my advice for anybody who is interested in a profession that takes a lot of work, is do some experimentation. See if you can find an attorney who will let you clerk for them for a little while. See if you maybe go work at H&R Block and see if you actually like accounting and taxes, because you don't want to invest a bunch of time and a bunch of energy into something that takes a lot of that out of you if you aren't really passionate about it. And I think that that's what keeps me going. Like, even on the most challenging days, I have this vision of myself in the future, like, you know, having my own tax practice where people can come to me and I can take care of all of their business needs. If you need to set up a business, I can take care of all of it. If you want to set up a retirement plan, I can help you with the estate planning. You know, if you need tax representation, I can actually represent you as a lawyer in court if I get my law degree. You know, I can review contracts for my clients and let them know, like, is this really going to be profitable for you? What tax considerations do you need to think about? Would it be better for you to take this grant in Kentucky, or should you look at something in New York? You know, there's several states that offer a similar grant to what Kentucky has. There's several countries that do, actually. So some of it is just having the knowledge and having the expertise so that I can really fully help my clients. And that's kind of what keeps me going, is knowing that 4 years from now, I'll be able to provide a higher level of service than what I do now. I will say, keeping up with everything, and most especially keeping up with self-care, has been a challenge. I think I was here 6 months before I got a haircut or even like a color. You know, things just kind of, you just kind of forget to take care of yourself. And I cannot emphasize enough, like, you need to make time to take care of yourself, because whenever you don't, you get worn out, you get burnt out really easily. And you definitely need to, I mean, for me in particular, I have 1 hour a day that I set aside for exercise, because if I do not exercise, I am stressed out, I can't sleep, and just my body doesn't work the way that I need it to. My brain doesn't work as well, you know. one of the best pieces of advice I got whenever I was studying for the CPA exam was to make sure to take a break. Make sure you take a break while you're studying. Make sure you take a break at the CPA exam. You get like a 15-minute break halfway through. I think it's different state by state. But you get this 15-minute break. The first time I sat for the exam, I didn't take the break. I just kept working. And then the second time that I went to take the exam, somebody has said, you have to take that 15-minute break because it allows your brain to kind of recharge to get you through the next half of the exam. Your brain doesn't work as well if you just like wear it out for 4 hours. So that, I think, it is a big part of why I was able to actually pass it the second time was, I had actually taken the full 15-minute break and gave my brain like time to rest, and then came back and was able to just knock out the rest of the test. And so that's kind of something I've implemented with law school, is not only taking breaks during the weekday, but on the weekend I make sure and I do one fun thing, just whatever. Go to a baseball game, go on a hike, take the dogs to a beach, grab lunch with my friends, whatever I got to do to get out of the house and do something that's not work or school related. And I think that that's been super beneficial for me, just for mental health reasons, and also, just keeping me motivated to just keep up with the grind, All right, so tax issues that have come up this week or just interested me. I'm sure that's what you all are really here for anyway. I'm going to start off with like a fun one. The earned income credit turned 50 years old this week, which is crazy because for some reason I thought that it wasn't around that long. For those of you who don't know, who aren't, tax professionals or whatever, the earned income credit is basically a credit that encourages people who are at lower income to work. It's a credit that's given to you if you have W-2 wages or non-employee compensation and you're below like a certain adjusted gross income. And it really is dependent on what your income is, how many kids you have, and also what your filing status is. So if you're married filing joint, it's going to be a little bit higher. If you're single, it's going to be a little bit lower. It's one of the few tax credits that's refundable, which means that even if you didn't pay into taxes, you can still get the credit. So let's say your taxable income is only a certain amount and you only owe, $100 in taxes, but you have a $2,000 earned income credit, you can get the full $2,000, which is kind of amazing. I've had a couple of clients who got the earned income credit, and it's kind of crazy how much money you can get from it. And I don't think people realize that. I think they're like, oh, I get this credit because I have kids, and I'm like, no, the child tax credit is different. Like it offsets your taxes due, whereas the earned income credit is actually below how much you pay in taxes. And so that's why it can be super beneficial to people. It can also kind of hurt some folks. The one weird issue that I've run into with the earned income credit is some people think, oh, if I open up an LLC and run like this huge loss, I can offset my taxable income and get more back in taxes. And that doesn't necessarily work every time, and that's because of the earned income credit. If you lower your taxable income too much, then you don't qualify for the earned income credit and you actually get a lower refund. So it's kind of ironic that people think that they're doing this like cool tax saving strategy, and I'm like, no, it's actually hurting you. So that's been kind of an interesting thing that I've seen in my industry so far. It is a highly audited credit though, so if you do qualify for it, or if your tax preparer uses that credit on your tax return, you want to make sure you keep whatever documentation that you have to prove like these were your wages at the time, this was your income, that you do have the right to claim whatever dependents you did claim in order to get the credit. You don't necessarily have to have a dependent, but you do get more of a credit if you have dependents. So And then a big thing that clients can run into with the earned income credit is underreporting income. A lot of people think if you get paid in cash, you don't have to report it. And I'm like, you do have to report it. I mean, legally you have to. Will the IRS know about it? It really depends. Like, I mean, there's some people who think, oh, they're never going to know. As long as you don't deposit in a bank account, they're never going to know. And I'm like, well, they will know if you're out here buying like luxury vehicles and $1 million home with cash. Like, if you're reporting $20,000, and I'm laughing, but like I have heard stories of people saying, you know, oh, they made like $50,000 last year, and then they run a cash business and they buy a huge house with like, they put a water fountain out in front and have 6 vehicles, and the IRS shows up and goes, how are you affording this on your $50,000 a year? You know. Interesting thing that I found out though is that some states have the earned income credit. California is one of them, and California's earned income credit is actually based on your zip code. So your adjusted gross income changes based on where you live in the state. You have more or less of a chance of getting the credit based on your adjusted gross income and the adjusted gross income of that area. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, you know, the federal government is basically just like a flat rate. But if you think about it, like, my parents live in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. You can survive on $20K a year there, but most of those people probably get the earned income credit. Whereas out here, there's no way you're going to live off of $20,000 a year unless you like live with your parents, you know, like. So it's interesting that California's like legislator had the forethought to think like, well, there's certain parts of California where less money really doesn't put you in a position of like poverty, because you don't need to make as much money in order to survive here. But if you're in like Los Angeles, you need to make a little bit more money in order to not be like living in poverty. So Uber and DoorDash are pressing Republican lawmakers to expand on the no tax on tips promise. Basically saying tips are tips, and that we should also be included in this conversation and not have to pay taxes on our tips as well. It looks like under the bill though they will not be eligible. I think it looks like the main concern is that if they included rideshare drivers and delivery drivers, that people might it would basically open the floodgates for other companies to say, well, you know, part of our employees' wages are also tips, and so they should get the exclusion on, according to this bill. I'll be interested to see if this bill even passes. You hear restaurants saying like, oh my gosh, if we have to, you know, actually pay our employees their wages, which for a server, like the minimum wage is only like $2.15 an hour, I think. It's bad that I don't know that, but I was a waitress for several years, and I remember I very rarely got a paycheck because my tips were so much that it just kind of like cleaned up my whole paycheck. And most servers I knew wouldn't file their taxes because they never got a refund. They always owed because of how much they got in tips and how little they were paid. So I know a lot of restaurants are concerned like, oh, if we actually have to pay our employees minimum wage, we won't survive. I'm a little bit, small business owners are definitely, especially the restaurant industry, is still kind of recovering from COVID, and then to put this on top of them would be brutal and not really fair, considering how they were probably the most impacted by COVID. But then, of course, my other concern is like, if you can't afford to pay your workers $2.15 an hour, I feel like you have some bigger concerns. Maybe you should look into like budgeting or some of your processes to figure out why you can't afford the server's minimum wage, especially whenever it's like a fourth what the regular minimum wage is. But yeah, I mean, I was a server for many years, and something like this could have greatly benefited me and could greatly benefit some people that I know. The other consideration I'm wondering is there is a tip credit available to most restaurants, and I'm wondering if they've discussed how that will be affected. The tip credit is basically, it's a credit to ensure that restaurants are paying their employees minimum wage, essentially. Restaurants don't get to deduct tips as like a business expense, or they're not supposed to on the tax return. But you still get a credit for the tips that your employees are paid, and that is that tip is reduced by if they are not paid the whatever the minimum wage is. I believe the tip credit minimum wage this last year was $5.25 an hour. So basically, it's if their tips and their hourly rate don't equal $5.25 an hour, then your credit is reduced. So it's basically like encouraging restaurants to pay their employees enough or ensure they make enough tips to survive. So I'm wondering if they get rid of this, if they do tax-free tips, will they also eliminate the tip credit, which is pretty big credit, pretty big benefit to a lot of the restaurants that I do taxes for. So that'll be interesting. I'm also kind of wondering how this will affect occupational taxes. So, I mean, a lot of cities get quite a bit of revenue from taxes on tips. And if they don't have that revenue anymore, what's the backup plan? What are they going to do to make up for that difference? I feel like the federal government, they've said that it would probably cost a couple $1 million in taxes. I feel like the federal government can probably eat that cost or find that money elsewhere, but for a lot of smaller cities, I'll be interested to see like how they go about this, if they fall in line with what the federal government says and don't charge tax on tips, or if they find some other way to come up with revenue. All right, and finally, the National Treasury Employees Union is suing the Trump administration over an executive order that was issued last week exempting more than a dozen agencies from collective bargaining obligations, stating that it violates federal workers' labor rights and the U.S. Constitution, as well as threatening the union's very existence. I was today years old when I found out the IRS had a union. I feel like that's something I should have known, but I had no idea. I think that's very interesting. I think some of this is due to the job cuts that have been happening at the IRS, which has also been kind of interesting, especially during tax season. I've had a couple of clients who were like, maybe I don't need to file my taxes because if there's no IRS, I don't have to pay anybody, right? And I'm like, you don't pay the IRS. You pay the federal government. The IRS just kind of facilitates it. So if there's no IRS and you have an issue, you're not going to have anybody to contact. So I think that's been the thing that people have been the most concerned about is if we start getting rid of people, it's going to be a whole lot harder to get somebody on the phone if you have some kind of weird issue that comes up with your taxes. Trump is stating that the order is necessary to safeguard national security. And of course, the NTEU, which is the IRS's union, I guess, is basically stating that can't be true because most of the agencies that are covered in this order are primarily not involved in intelligence or national security. There already exists an exception to collective bargaining for most workers who are involved with national security. So certain members of the CIA and FBI already aren't allowed to unionize, so that reason doesn't really make sense. So the NTU is saying that this is actually more a policy issue to try to make it easier for federal employees to be laid off. So that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, I'm going to speak a little bit more about the state of the accounting field and what that means for small business owners and what it could mean for people who are entering the workforce or even thinking about a change. And as always, like if you have something you want me to talk about, feel free to comment or send me a message. And definitely send me those dog food recipes because I need help. I need guidance. And I hope you enjoyed this. And until next time, I hope your treat jar stays full and your taxes are easy.